No bicycling. Bicycling. So many people do not respect that, unfortunately. We got another series of tests today. Oh no, we've already got a fault showing up. Well, hey, you know, we'll just have to see how it goes. So what happened was, a lot of people saw, I was talking about the introduction of 4K the other day. Let's see, are we live? Might not be. Something went wrong, it says. No, there it is. Maybe. I think it's live. Anyway, if you're watching on YouTube right now, you should be seeing this show in 4K. But it says fault, and we're already in the orange and the red for heat. So, I don't know, we could at any moment, perhaps, we'll see what happens. If you enjoy the 4K, I hope you'll become a sponsor. I totally blew out my data plan yesterday. I had to get a new data plan to be able to do this show today. And why does it say fault? So we're at 12 megabits. Well, hopefully it holds up. But definitely become a sponsor of the show on subscribestar.com or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. If you like the 4K, it's blowing out the budget. So much so I might have to make 4K a sponsor exclusive item. As of right now, anybody watching on YouTube or Subscribestar or Patreon or on Substack, on crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, you should be getting the show in 4K. I don't know why it says fault. Still a lot to figure out. I mentioned to everybody I had this conversation with this big network expert. I apologize to the people who are following me on X at JG_CSTT. Even if you sponsor there, I don't think that X supports 4K. They can land a rocket ship on a toothpick or on a chopstick, whatever, but no 4K. Not on X. But I want to talk about Zohran Mamdani, the chaos mayor. I've been depicting him as the Joker because he's such a clown. But not only for that reason. I mean, you know, remember the Joker, or maybe it was Alfred, said, "Some men just want to watch the world burn." That appears to be what Mamdani is doing. He's not trying to improve New York City. He's just trying to really be a fly in the ointment, maybe chase away businesses to try to make the city more affordable for people who aren't here legally, people who want to break the law, endanger the lives and safety of other normal people. Seems to be what he wants to do. I'm saying that because he had this big, that's a hefty hound, had this big rollout of his dog meeting of the minds there. Had this big rollout of his crackdown on e-bikes. He's cracking down. Do we want to be back to standard here? Is this guy going to do some kind of trick? These guys look like they're up to some acrobatic tricks, perhaps. Crackdown on e-bikes. He said he sent a cease and desist letter to the retailers of e-bikes, and it was something like 40 some odd retailers who are sending these powerful e-bikes to the various zip codes in New York City. Looks good live. Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, hopefully we can maintain 12 megabits because that's what the fault is telling me. I don't know. But, okay, I mean, look, let's give the guy a little bit of credit. Yeah, we got a problem with e-bikes. A lot of people don't understand where I'm coming from when I get so angry at these people riding bikes on the sidewalk. New York City is a lot more crowded than whatever municipality you might be in, unless it's like Tokyo or Sao Paulo. So here, right here, we have an e-bike on the sidewalk. This is a rental e-bike, okay? It's powering delivery. I don't think it's delivering anything. I don't know what this thing weighs, but it goes 20, 25, 30 miles an hour And if it hits you, you're getting injured. Plus, the kinetic energy generated by an impact from that thing is going to be amplified when there's a person sitting on it. And you see, prior to April 2020, e-bikes were not legal in New York City. You couldn't have them. I mean, I guess people did. Guns and crack are illegal, but they have that too. But the point is, the proliferation, the explosion of these e-bikes since the pandemic. Very interesting, right? Everybody was in their house. This guy's got the Pee Wee Herman Schwinn. Gotta give him props. See, you gotta be a lot more careful and engaged when you're riding a regular bike, because first of all, it's human powered. And I mean, it takes a bit of effort. It can only accelerate as fast as the person can. You're not really, maybe hand on the throttle while you're not looking. So all e-bikes, all of these. Look at the size of this thing. Look at this. Okay, so we got all these e-bikes. We got all these dudes driving them. Yeah, delivering the weed or whatever they're doing. I don't know. Do these look like responsible taxpayers to you? And by the way, it's not just about you have to be a taxpayer to ride an e-bike. What I'm getting at is Zohran Mamdani wants to crack down on the people who are selling them. That doesn't affect the thousands that we have here already. Look all around. Every single one of these is an e-bike. Joko, what the hell is that? But every single one of these bikes should have a license plate on it. The people operating them should need to have whatever kind of class of, maybe it's not a driver's license, maybe it's not a motorcycle license. I think a motorcycle license might be adequate, maybe not. A motorcycle, you need to know how to shift the clutch, the gears. It's more complicated, but there should be some sort of motorized vehicle operator's license required for that, so that we know that the people riding around endangering the safety of everybody is a legitimate person who has insurance. You should have to have accident insurance, liability insurance if you hurt someone. There have been multiple deaths. In fact, the thing that prompted the chaos mayor to do this whole e-bike crackdown is that a 17-year-old kid was killed. Every week I read stories of old ladies getting killed. Look at every single one of these. Every single one of these city bikes right here is an e-bike. This company should be held to account. Oh, there's one that's not an e-bike. We've got one human-powered bike in the lot there. Sorry, 3. But look at all these dozens of e-bikes everywhere. Oh man, that building blocks our view of the Empire State Building. Is that done yet? Looks like it's still under construction, doesn't it? Well, we just missed, people barrel-assing here. I'm just standing on the edge. I guess you could argue maybe I'm encroaching on the bike lane there by sticking my gimbal out there. But the point is, they're crowding out the bike lane with the e-bikes and driving around like crazy. And almost every single story you hear about someone being injured by an e-bike, the e-bike rider just leaves and nobody knows who it is. So if you had a driver's license, an e-bike rider's license, and a license plate on the e-bike, maybe, first of all, it would discourage some of the recklessness because the people riding them would have a sense that they might be held to account. Whereas right now, there is no accountability, so people do whatever the hell they want. That's a wild ride right there. I bet it's also an e-bike. He's got the Spider-Man battery there. Spider-Man made $1 billion, incidentally. Not bad for a week's work. He's doing all right. So, the other thing is we haven't seen one of these yet. I saw one walking over here. As a matter of fact, it almost hit me on the sidewalk. What's the name of it? This is one of the most popular types of e-bikes. I got it right here. It's the, what is this thing called? Engway M20 3.0. Oh look, 3,300 watts. 33, why is that the number? The thing that I'm interested in showing people here is, look at this, 120 Newton meters of torque. Okay, that's a measure of the power output of the engine. It's not the same as horsepower, but it's got to do with the turning power of the engine and how quickly it can accelerate. That's one of the biggest issues. Everybody knows electric cars are super duper fast. They're actually super quick is what they are. You know, most electric cars aren't necessarily faster than a gas-powered car in terms of going 100 and 150 miles an hour and stuff like that, but they accelerate extremely quickly because it doesn't have all of the friction and inertia of a large piston engine that needs to get all kinds of things moving to generate torque. It's just power on and it's kind of instant torque. So they're very light and they're very strong and they accelerate extremely quickly. Here's more e-bikes everywhere. There's an e-bike. They're all e-bikes. Everybody's got the batteries on the e-bikes. Every single one of these. Every single one. Except for that one. Okay, so it's an overwhelming majority of the bikes. This guy's driving the wrong way on an e-bike, not in the bike lane. Almost causing an accident with the car. Okay, so people say, yeah, Jason, 120 Newton meters of torque, so what? Well, in order to get that level of power from a motorcycle, you're talking about like an 1100 cc. This is a Kawasaki Ninja 1100. This is like a $15,000 Japanese super bike. I think this thing goes 200 miles an hour. And look at its specification. I think this thing has like 100, what is it? 113 Newton meters of torque. Okay, so we're talking about a motorized device that is comparable to a certain extent in power to an insane crotch rocket Japanese racing motorcycle. And which, by the way, I've seen on the sidewalk too. Because what happens is, people say, oh, well, just a bicycle, I'm gonna ride it on the sidewalk. My kid's just 11. Why are you yelling at my kid? I'm yelling at you. No bicycles on the sidewalk. But then the bicycle becomes the e-bike, becomes the 120 Newton meter e-bike / motorcycle, becomes the motorcycle. And then suddenly now you're, you know, dodging, you're playing Frogger for your life on the sidewalk, which they don't call it the side e-bike, it's the sidewalk. Okay, unless you are disabled and needing some sort of a device to help you achieve mobility, no motorized vehicle at all should be on the sidewalk. And what Mamdani should have done is he should have said, starting today, we're gonna have a licensing process for every single e-bike, city bike, all these other bikes, and if you are caught without a license plate on your e-bike and without an e-bike rider's license, you're gonna be fined. Maybe give everybody a 30-day, a 90-day grace period. But you know what? The city needs money. Start charging people for these license plates and these licenses. Don't be raising taxes on the people who, everybody who's, you know, delivering weed and, you know, delivering illegal sandwiches from Tren de Aragua. Why do we have to pay for them and then get injured by them and then they ride away and, you know, you're paying your mandatory Obamacare insurance. And by the way, I'm not saying anything against weed. We now have established a method for selling weed where apparently, you know, tax is supposed to get paid. I bet you that doesn't work either. It's an all cash kind of deal. But My point is, Zohran Mamdani is all about empowering criminals and cracking down on businesses. E-bikes should be able to be sold in New York City. Cars are sold, but you're not allowed to ride them on the sidewalk. And you've got to have insurance. Boom, right there, through the green light, on an e-bike. I got walk, that guy speeds through. Instant ticket. Just like they're ticketing cars, photograph that e-bike license plate, send him a ticket. If it's a city bike, they have his credit card. Charge him right away. Just the fact that people know that that will be happening to them, you're going to start to see people comply. And you say, oh, Jason, you're a statist. You want the state to monitor everything. No, I want to be able to walk around through the park and on a sidewalk without knowing that every step I take is a risk of serious injury. By the way, death might be the most extreme possibility, but you break your hand, you break your knee, you break your ankle, you break your leg. That is gonna, you can have permanent injuries from this stuff. And people are like, haha, let's post videos of Jason yelling at people on the sidewalk. That fucking piece of shit, Gary Melton, who still has a lawsuit coming his way. Fuck you, Gary. He thinks it's funny that I receive permanent injuries from a criminal. That guy got taken away in handcuffs, and his asshole friend, Kyle Seraphin, is like, oh, where's the proof? Show the proof. Fuck you, Kyle Seraphin. You're supposed to be an FBI agent. You know how to look up criminal records. That was October 31st. You know my name. October 31st, what, 2025? Look it up. The guy got taken away in handcuffs. That's all you need to know. Point is, he was a lunatic, riding a bicycle at dangerous speed on the sidewalk, endangering everyone. And I just told him, get it off the sidewalk. He tried to attack me with a bike lock. It's the other thing. Just the act of trying to license people who are using these things. I got attacked by another guy who was a moped gangster. Remember, there was that Free Palestine rally outside FIT. I just started recording with my phone. I didn't say anything. People surrounded me. Why am I not allowed to record a protest with my phone? It wasn't even this big setup. Look, is this dog in the fire department? They like those kind of dogs for some reason. I don't know why the fire department likes Dalmatians, but they do. I was attacked by that guy who appeared in the New York Post the next day. What was his name? Victor Para. And they said, New York Post said, he had been arrested a couple days prior and taken to Rikers Island, part of a Venezuelan moped gang. So again, if you made people have driver's licenses and you couldn't just buy an e-bike without, you go to buy a cell phone, they want to know your name, your address, the credit card. You can't just get them, right? Why? We got these shops. Look at this thing. What do we got here? We got these shops, Fly e-bike, selling to criminals. You go in there, you can tell there's repair in progress on this. So, again, Zohran didn't say that. Way, way, way at the bottom of the announcement, they said if you're operating one of these illegal e-bikes, it may be impounded. First of all, they're not going to do that. The cops aren't doing a damn thing. And second of all, that's a weak, the fish stinks from the head. Everything goes from the head, right? So if he makes a weak, half-assed demand, nobody's going to follow it. If he comes out and says anybody at all operating a bike on the sidewalk is going to have their bike impounded and they're going to be immediately ticketed, and it's going to cost you like $500 or $1,000, and then start doing that, taking these bikes, and these guys lose their jobs, they will stop. But they're all over the place. Deliveries on the sidewalk. I say, oh, people are just trying to earn a living. Why don't people get off their fat, lazy asses and go walk down to the deli and get your own sandwich. The number of delivery lunatics around is just absolutely crazy. It's not crowdsource the government, Alex. It's crowdsource the not getting injured walking around. By the way, this is the one thing the government is supposed to do. Set reasonable laws and enforce them. And I mean, everyone's like, oh, it's just a bike on the side. That pisses me off, Alex, because people are getting injured and killed. And Mamdani wants to make speeches about what he's going to do to Netanyahu, setting aside whatever it is that Netanyahu is doing. That is not his law enforcement task. New York City is his law enforcement task. Someone else is taking care of International Criminal Court. This guy can't even run New York City, is what I'm getting at. I mean, see, here's the thing. That restaurant over there, Japonica, that thing was in business 35 years that I'm aware of, even more. 40 years. It started over here. They crushed that building and made this huge thing. It moved over here, and then it went out of business. Do you know why it went out of business? Because people around here didn't have enough money to go out to restaurants, and because the city has become an inhospitable environment for business, and you had a fake pandemic where even if you wanted to go in there, they wouldn't let you in, and now businesses are closing. What the mayor needs to do is the mayor needs to get the budget of the city under control, stop all the wasting of money, and enforce the laws that exist. Okay, so we've got the cops stealing money like crazy, stealing time, cops having no-show appointments. Sal is talking about this all the time. He's coming on tomorrow. And what the mayor needs to do is focus on corruption in City Hall. Here, this guy is endangering his kid, riding on the e-bike. I mean, you know, to some extent, people can do what they want to do. He's not on the sidewalk. My issue is these e-bikes were never around, and virtually every person using them doesn't pay any attention to any aspect of the law and doesn't care about endangering the public. I personally don't care what that guy wants to do to injure his own kid, riding around with the kid in the basket, if that's what he chooses to do. What I'm worried about is I saw somebody doing that literally on the sidewalk just the other day. You could tell the guy was not in control of the bike. So he's putting everybody at risk. You know, there's old ladies walking around, mothers with strollers. This is not a playground. This is New York City. This is not where your kid should be learning how to ride a bike. Take him to a park, move to New Jersey. Not the sidewalk in New York City. People think, oh, my kid is 7. This is the most important thing in the world. No, get off the sidewalk. Yeah, look, 7. Was that psychic? Maybe. But the point is, once again, Mamdani is focused on the wrong things. He wants to tax, and by the way, all the rich people who would be going to a fancy Japanese restaurant are moving out of New York because he's raising the tax. So then the Japanese restaurant goes out of business. Then all the workers in the Japanese restaurant go out of business. That's how that works. The mayor needs to make this city a productive climate for businesses. I've said this a million times. It's like when Cadillac tried to make the Cimarron. Nobody wanted a cheap Cadillac. And you know, people who wanted a Cadillac didn't want a cheap car. The fire department kept Dalmatians because they formed a natural calming bond with carriage horses and could run alongside horse-drawn fire engines to clear paths, guard equipment, and act as living sirens. That's cool. Okay, good, Alex. We don't actually have any real jobs. That's exactly right. Now you're on the page, Alex. If you were joking, you know, sometimes hard to tell from the comments, but that's what I'm saying. Our buddy Zohran is busy making the city as hospitable as possible for scofflaws, deadbeats, drags on the economy. Meanwhile, people who want to open restaurants and hire people and create more taxpayers, and the rich people who are going to go to those restaurants, he's chasing them out. Now, what's this? Botanical Brothers.
You too.
Are you guys actually brothers?
We're not the brothers. We're friends with the brothers.
Okay. Botanical friends. Still. Now, it was raining a lot before. It's still pretty hot, which is also a test of this system. So far, we've been running for 25 minutes and maintaining 12 megabits. Right, so I was gonna say, I had this whole big conversation with that mobile data network expert guy who is involved in the development of the the link aggregating, network bonding, whole thing. So the other thing I'm testing is a whole new configuration of that today, and it still says fault, so I'm doing something wrong with it. That's less than ideal. Oh wow, and somehow that turned off, also overheating. Not good. It's a lot of stuff to monitor with all of this equipment going. So here's another thing out of business over here. That is historically going out of business. When I first moved to New York City, that was BBQ. Then, what did it become? I don't remember. But it seems to have a really hard time staying in business. And just back on Zohran Mamdani for a second. He knows the power of media. He knows if he gave a press conference or started doing TikTok videos where, he could really try to make a difference. He could say, hey, he's so into collectivism and Marxism and socialism and communism. How about doing a campaign where you tell people to consider their fellow New Yorkers and keep your e-bike off the sidewalk? Follow the lights. Keep in mind, you're driving a motorized vehicle and you could hurt someone. And if that was your mother or grandmother or little girl, sister, whatever it might be, kids walking around, and they got hurt, how would you feel? Maybe saying that in a TikTok video that 1 million people see might affect 20 people. It could save a life. Instead, he's coming out against the retailers. I mean, I'm not saying don't do that, but the guy's got his head up his ass. So yeah, the bonded array, I have a whole new configuration of that today. I don't know why it says fault. And also we're now blazing hot in the red. So I guess this could overheat at any moment. It's over 90 degrees right now. Pretty damn hot, huh? Yes. See, everybody agrees. It's hot. But I wanted to test it in the heat and to come down to the park. This is another spot where they should make it clear to people that this is not for bike riding. I keep saying, oh, take your kid to the park to ride the bike. Not this park. Not a park that specifically says no bike riding. And this is one of those. No bike riding, no scootering, prohibited. Littering, smoking, barbecuing, open flame, dogs. Now, it used to say bike riding. Are they allowing bike riding in here now? It's just crazy. People saw in Madison Square Park it said no bike riding. They're trying to turn the city into a biking paradise. The other problem with these e-bikes that we haven't discussed is the lithium fires. People might say, oh, bicycling, seems like it's going to rain again. Bicycling is better for the environment. Well, maybe if you have a regular bicycle and you're, exercising your fat ass, perhaps. But I don't know, are e-bikes better for the environment than what? You're mining lithium and making batteries, and if it catches on fire, that's no good. Yeah, the park is pretty quiet today, I think because of the rain before. It's been raining a lot this summer. And back to weed sales over here. So you can tell to what degree the criminals have a good finger on the pulse of what the cops are or aren't doing. And remember when, what's the sheriff's name? I don't know, Sal, are you there in the comments? I forget the sheriff's name. He's in trouble now, but he was stealing the weed and the weed money. I forget that guy's name. So this guy says almost everybody in the city he's living in is illegal. So that's my point. we've got unaccountable people riding around on these bikes. You get injured, that person has no insurance, no accountability. In addition to having your injuries, you might have a big, huge medical bill. That's pretty crappy. Nobody wants that. How's the 4K looking? Are people watching in 4K? I hope so. Got the cooler back on, so hopefully we're not going to overheat. Hot ladies wanted. I mean, that's generally the case, isn't it? Let us interview you. Get paid $10. What are they interviewing hot ladies about? That's a strange offer. Ah, back down to orange, so I guess the cooler is working. So, yeah, oh, this guy has got some sort of a badge. Is he a cop? I can't really see, but maybe people watching in 4K can see what that badge says. Remember, the police utilized what I thought was a Bluetooth low energy attack right over here. Seemed to be getting 12 megabits of internet, no problem. Here's another guy who should be shut down, skateboarding in the park. It definitely says no skateboarding, but yet NYPD, they just allow it to go on. And they say, oh, well. Jeff is asking if an e-bike caused the Bronx fire yesterday. I certainly don't know. See, there used to be a sign right there that said no skateboarding, no bikes. They took it away. So they decided rather than enforce the law, just give in to the criminals. I don't know if an e-bike caused the fire yesterday, but there was some statistic in the Post saying that some huge number of e-bikes were causing fires, and something like 50% of the fatalities involving bikes were e-bikes. So, I mean, you know, that could just be a function of the fact that there's so many of these e-bikes around now. I mean, we saw over there, most every bike was an e-bike. I mean, it's also, what about the fact that everybody is just fat and lazy? I see people rolling around, fat guys smoking cigarettes on the e-bikes. Used to be, you had to be pretty fit and paying attention to ride a bike around New York City, you know? No longer the case. The other thing that people were up in arms about was this, Todd Blanche kowtowing to Tom Tillis over the Trump's anti-weaponization fund. See, I smell a stench on that, because I think what they're actually doing is political horse trading on the don't prosecute Tom Tillis for all of his mortgage fraud. 2.5 million people saw that tweet that I put out about Tom Tillis's crazy mortgage fraud. Go on to X and search my X for Tillis, and you'll see it. Nothing has happened to him. See, but while I'm talking about Mamdani, we got to talk about Trump too. We've got this whole thing coming up now with the Oxford comma and James Comey, opening this investigation with all of this fake evidence and nonsense. And meanwhile, people are like, see, they should have prosecuted him for his 8647. Somebody pointed out that Comey had a tweet around 2017 where he said, I'm a big fan of the Oxford comma. And I agree, that is evidence that Comey is a wise ass who's making jokes about how he flouts the law and weaponizes his power as the FBI director. But the point is, to me at least, that's not, okay, it's telling us something about his 8647, but why are we prosecuting him for 8647 when you've got all of this evidence that he was committing treason, going against the President of the United States and against the law when he was the FBI director? Why aren't we immediately indicting Andrew McCabe, Jim Baker, James Comey. By the way, who was on that email from Ben Wittes, December 28th, 2016? Uh-oh, it's starting to rain. Here's a regular Pee Wee Herman bike. Oh man, I hope I don't get caught in the rain. All this stuff is going to get wet. But I don't know. I mean, just like Mamdani is worried about e-bikes, meanwhile the whole city is going out of business, and he's going to, I don't know what. He sends a cease and desist letter to Amazon.com. Okay, decent start. But why don't you get all of the standing around doing nothing NYPD traffic people, the second they see one of these e-bikes that's not allowed, confiscate it? And, the other thing, by the way, that going after the retailers rather than the actual criminals on the bikes is going to do, you're just going to create a big black market for selling these bikes in New Jersey and bringing them in. Here's one of these. Is this that exact one? No. It's different. But it's still huge. Look at all the battery, all the stuff this can carry. This is a heavy thing. This crashes into you going 25, 30 miles an hour with some fat ass on it. The e-scooter, the e-bike, you're going to be hurt. So you create a black market in New Jersey. People buy the bikes there, bring them into Manhattan. You've got to have serious penalties for people who are using these. Anybody breaking the law on a bike, it should be the new thing. Take the most physically fit traffic cops and turn them into bicycle cops and start giving out tickets to people on bicycles. I bet you the city would make millions and millions of dollars. And take those bicycles and go auction them in some state where they're legal. People shouldn't be riding these bikes. I remember when I was in court for getting strangled outside of Twitter, there was a guy there who had a ticket for riding a bike on the sidewalk, and it was maybe like $200 or $100, something like that. And he was like saying to the judge, "Oh, come on, man." And the judge was getting pissed off, rightly so. It was clear that even after he got in trouble and was in court for it, this bike guy didn't take the infraction seriously. Nobody takes it seriously. That's why the crime keeps happening. So the mayor's doing nothing. But back onto Trump. He's also distracted. He doesn't have his eye on the ball. He's worried about 8647 when we've got a whole slew of criminal crap, all e-bikes right there, almost crashing into each other. Between Ben Wittes, who is running the Lawfare Institute, why don't we go after that? That thing is sending hundreds of thousands of dollars to Vindman. It looks like it's breaking the law to me as far as nonprofit law goes, sending money to Ben Wittes' house. Why not indict him? I mean, what the hell is taking so long? What is this, a Polestar SUV? That looks good. Polestar 3. So that's an E something. I don't have a problem with electrified vehicles. I just think that you shouldn't be allowed to drive them 30 miles an hour on the sidewalk and going the wrong direction. Some guy almost crashed into me the other day on a bike. And I was like, "Dude, you're going the wrong way." And he had some foreign accent. And he said, "Oh, sorry." I said, "You're not from New York, are you?" And he said, "No." I said, "Well, get the bike." No, first he was on the sidewalk. And then I said, "Get off the sidewalk. You got a bike lane right there." He said, "Oh, it's going the wrong way." I didn't even go any further in the conversation with him, but, follow the traffic. Go to 8th Avenue and head the direction you need to go. I mean, it's like if you're in your car, it's like, "Oh, 25th Street is going the wrong way. Let me just drive against traffic." No, that's not how that works. So I guess is there buffering? Has anybody, are you watching in 4K? Give me a thumbs up if you're watching in 4K. Yeah, the other thing that I've noticed is there's just incredible throttling on this channel, this channel was shut down for 5 years. Well, I don't know which channel people are watching on. I'm talking about the Jason Goodman YouTube channel. Was shut down for 5 years, and after a huge legal battle, I got it reactivated. And I think that YouTube is acting vindictively against me by throttling the reach of all the channels. So don't ever take a CD from somebody like this if that guy's handing out CDs, because he's then going to ask you for $1 or $10, $20, and get pissed off if you take it. Also, who has a CD player anymore? But the channel was down for 5 years. It's back now. Look, there's the Joker. Oh, it looks like the joke of a mayor. The channel was down for 5 years, and after a protracted legal battle with YouTube, I got it back. But I think they took action against all my channels because, you know, it's amazing. You look at a channel like criminal loser Blake Bednar's, who stole my content, put it on his channel, made a video about me. He has 10,000 subscribers, 11,000 subscribers. That video got 10,000 views in a day. So if people aren't interested in Jason Goodman, why did that happen? On a channel with 1/14 the viewership or 1/10 the viewership. Doesn't make sense to me. And you might say, oh, well, Jason, your channel was deactivated for 5 years. So the algorithm, you know, people weren't being recommended or whatever. Okay, so let's look at other comparables, right? When you're getting into real estate, you look at comps. So John Cullen, kind of a comparable channel. We deal with a lot of similar content, certainly did shows together for many, many years. He was gone for 6 months, comes back, basically steals videos from Tucker Carlson, just puts his, you know, asinine commentary on there. He gets thousands of views. The other thing that's quite interesting is even on Crowdsource the Truth 11 and 12, which are only like 10,000 subscribers each, prior to the reinstatement of the 100,000 plus Jason Goodman channel, those channels you were regularly getting 1,000, 1,500 views on a video, which is pretty normal, like 10% of viewership. That's what I thought was normal. 10% of the subscriber base approximately is watching any given video. Now those channels get like 100 views, and it does seem pretty tightly correlated with when the Jason Goodman channel came back. And so that all had to do with YouTube having some kind of congressional hearing where Congress was threatening to, I guess, break it up or regulate it or do something. They were saying it was a monopoly, which it obviously is. And they said, oh, no, don't do that. We'll create a mechanism for people who had their First Amendment rights abused by getting kicked off of YouTube. We'll create a mechanism for them to get back on. And it was that mechanism that I utilized. It was not administered fairly. And it was the legal battle over that unfair administration of that public promise and how it implicated them in regard to the business laws of New York and California that ultimately gave me the leverage to basically force them to put the channel back. But again, I say they were pissed off about that, and they said, hey, this is our platform and we don't want you on it. So fine, you're gonna make a legal stink. We'll put you back on there, but we're gonna do all this opaque stuff to prevent you from getting any views. So that's a big part of the reason why it is so important for people who appreciate Crowdsource the Truth, or even if you hate Crowdsource the Truth, if you're watching and you're spending your time here, it's important that you become a sponsor. And yeah, that's the other thing I gotta watch is that, so I blew out the data plan, had to get a new data plan. It's still going. It does still look like it's functioning at 4K, right? How do I check that? Yeah, here we go. That says 720. No, it does still have 4K in there. So I think it's still maintaining 12 megabits, although this says fault. The point is, that now costs much more money in terms of data. Dunkin' Donuts is coming soon. Now that Taco Bell seems new. Haven't necessarily been right over here in a little while. Yeah, so, and by the way, same thing with X, right? X, George's brother, recently kicked off of X. He's been violating the platform rules for a long, long time and using legal process, it appears to me, improperly to threaten them. Good job stopping right in the crosswalk. Use legal process to threaten them and get his X account reinstated, which was primarily used to target and harass me. I think I've mentioned this. I was talking about it the other day. Talk about this Oxford comma, Ben Whitty's, the Lawfare Institute. I think that's why Crowdsource the Truth has been so heavily targeted. You know, when I first started working with George and he initiated contact with Charles Ortel, I think the goal there was to stick Charles with these 33,000 fake emails from Peter Smith, which Charles smartly refused to accept. But that's what they wanted. That was their plan, you know. I was talking the other day about these intelligence operations that try to nudge people into doing things, whether it's getting Tyler Robinson on a roof or not, or getting Thomas Crooks to pose for photographs in Butler, PA, or be on a roof there or not, or to make it look like somebody has kidnapped Gretchen Whitmer or not. Smells like pretty good pizza over here. Where is that coming from? This guy just totally bumped into me, said nothing. The nudge, I think that's what they were trying to do to Charles, to try to convince him to take these emails. Oh, by the way, the 33,000 fake emails and then say, oh, these are fake. Anything to do with email and Hillary Clinton is fake. Anything Charles is talking about is fake. But of course it didn't work because Charles is too smart for them. But what I was going to say is, I don't know if people have been looking at this Oxford comma documentation that was recently released, but they talk a lot about DC leaks. Do people remember what that's from? DC leaks? Dugan created that. John Mark Dugan created that. And I was talking about this yesterday. One of the very first remote Crowdsource the Truth videos I did, long before this comparatively very sophisticated system existed. One of the very first videos I did remote was with John Mark Dugan. He was in Moscow and I was in, Jeff's got the 4K. Are you watching on a giant TV, Jeff? I hope so. There's not a lot of 4K stuff, so hopefully. See, this is just irresponsible because although these bikes aren't dangerous, these kids could easily crash into someone and hurt them, and their idiot parents are all the way back here being totally irresponsible. Someone could hurt their kids could hurt somebody else. You guys have insurance for when your kids crash into my ankle with the bicycles that they shouldn't be riding on the sidewalk?
How you doing?
I'm doing better if you would keep your kids off the sidewalk with the bicycles. Selfish assholes. Those people think they own New York City. They probably voted for Zohran Mamdani. You got 4-year-old kids riding around. They don't know what they're doing. If they crash into your ankle and break your ankle, they're going to say, oh, we're sorry. We're so sorry. Total assholes. What was I saying? Yeah, right. John Mark Dugan. So just like they were trying to nudge Charles to take these emails, and when I say they, I'm talking about the FBI. I think the Lawfare Institute is an FBI cutout, and I think Peter Smith was working with the Lawfare Institute, as was or is George Webb and his brother. And the idea was, in the case of Dugan, he had created something called PBSOtalk.org. Dugan was a Palm Beach County Sheriff's deputy. He was a Marine, and then he became a police officer in Palm Beach. And what was going on in Palm Beach at that time? Jeffrey Epstein. So Dugan didn't know about Epstein, I guess, but he created this PBSO Talk so that people in the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office could blow the whistle on what he described as a very corrupt sheriff, who, by the way, that guy is still the sheriff, Rick something. And people started leaking stuff to this anonymous WikiLeaks type website, PBSO Talk, including that detective, I think his name is Mark Riccari. He died mysteriously at age 50 or 51. And Riccari had uploaded videos from the Epstein Mansion raid to PBSOtalk.org. It was really just for any police. Riccari was the Palm Beach police, not the Palm Beach County Sheriff. I'm not really sure how that works over there, but they're two different organizations. And so Dugan on this server had evidence from Epstein. And in our first interview, Dugan described to me that he had been contacted by someone who he didn't know at the time, but later learned to be Seth Rich. And that person said, "Hey, Dugan," I don't know if he knew his name was Dugan, but he said, "Hey, can you create an anonymous whistleblower website for me, for Washington, D.C. insiders, to be able to blow the whistle the way you're doing for Palm Beach County Police?" And Dugan said, "Sure," and he created DC Leaks. Dugan had nothing to do with Russia, as far as I know at that time. He just was living in Florida, and I think he had been fired because he had blown the whistle on the Palm Beach County Sheriff, and they didn't like him because they were, stealing cocaine from the evidence room and having hooker parties and all kinds of crazy things that he was trying to blow the whistle on. So he got pushed out. He created this DC Leaks, apparently for Seth Rich, and this is the important part. So Seth Rich was trying to send him the zip file or the WinRAR file. Shepard has blocked me. I don't think we're going to do any more shows with Shepard. He got pissed off about something to do with Butler, and he was not himself. I don't want to say anything bad about Shepard, but he did a bunch of things that he'd need to make a pretty big apology if there's going to be any future shows, and I don't think he's inclined to do that. But back to Dugan, he created this DC Leaks, right? And so this person who he didn't know was Seth Rich sent him a WinRAR file or a RAR file or whatever it is, and he sent it to him over Wicker, which is one of these, end-to-end encrypted type of things where you can allegedly, I don't believe that any of these things are real. I think they're all controlled by the FBI, and anyone who ever is trying to get you to communicate over those things is either ignorant of that or trying to entrap you in something, but whatever. Maybe didn't know it at the time, maybe this one was legitimate, I don't know. Point is, this Seth Rich person, or the person that he later would realize is Seth Rich, sends him this RAR file over Wicker, and it didn't work. It failed. The file was too big, or something happened that made it not work. And so here's where, this is my analysis of these facts, right? That's what Dugan told me. Sent him the WinRAR file and it didn't work. That's very believable to me. Wicker is a pretty janky thing, if it even exists anymore. It's definitely not intended for sending large files. The FBI, in my experience, is pretty stupid, particularly when it comes to like digital forensics and doing anything dealing with digital files. So if, and I'm speculating now, they wanted to jam up Dugan by sending him a digital file, doing it. Hello, guys. How's the fire department today? If they wanted to jam him up by sending him a digital file, the notion that they would have no idea that doing it over Wicker would not work until after it failed, that's believable to me. And in fact, that sounds exactly like something the FBI would do. So that file failed, and then Seth Rich said, oh, let me meet you in person and give you a thumb drive. Now that's weird to me for several reasons. Reason number one, you know, Seth Rich is this guy who was allegedly dealing with material that was so sensitive that he would ultimately be murdered for it. And he's a whistleblower, and people think he's the Julian Assange whistleblower source for WikiLeaks. I don't think so, and I don't think Julian Assange ever said that. And if you listen to that Dutch interview carefully, there's just no evidence that Julian Assange ever said that, and logic and everything we know about Julian Assange tells us that he would not say something like that if Seth Rich was the whistleblower. And the fact that he was talking about Seth Rich at all is more suggestive of the probability that Seth Rich had nothing to do with WikiLeaks. That guy's got a huge $100 bill in his car. I should remember the license plate of that crazy woman. Anyway, it just seems weird to me that if you sent some super sensitive file to somebody that you didn't know, and they were like, oh, it didn't come through, man, that your first instinct would be, oh, well, let's meet in person and I'll give it to you. I mean, you're using all of this anonymous uploading stuff and hiding your name. That doesn't make sense to me. It sounds to me like the FBI was desperate to get this file to Dugan so they could have a pretext to raid his house and take his server, because guess what? That's exactly what happened right after he got the file from Seth Rich. The other thing that's weird about that thumb drive handoff in a park in Washington, D.C. is that later George Webb would come to attribute that handoff to Craig Murray. And George Webb loves to do that, introduce false statements about factual occurrences so that people become confused about what it is that actually happened. Craig Murray confirmed that he never had a thumb drive from WikiLeaks. And also that just further confuses if anybody associates this thumb drive that Seth Rich gave to Dugan with George Webb's statements, you're going to confuse it with something that went to WikiLeaks. But no, it went to Dugan. And so now these documents that John Solomon released all about Oxford, it's talking about DC leaks, which is Dugan. Now the other thing with Oxford, why did they call it Oxford, You know, they think they're so smart and they love giving these things these stupid names that confuse people. But who appeared in Oxford? It was Eric Braverman. And remember, when I went to Oxford to try to talk to Eric Braverman, there was an incredibly weird response to my presence there. And as I think about it walking around now, the only thing similar was my presence down over there at Twitter, where people, you know, physically blocked me from speaking to the person. In that case, Eric Braverman. In this case, Elon Musk. Why would those guys even know or care that I was there? In the case of Eric Braverman, or is this guy Oscar, the garbage can? Why would the people running the Blavatnik School of Government at Oxford know or care that I was there to speak to Eric Braverman? Oxford, Why did they call it that? all of these things and all of these people are connected. And remember, in 2017, at that time, they didn't know if these efforts would succeed or fail. And this is the type of stuff that every single person involved should expect to go to jail for like the rest of their life over. I don't know, it's weird. I don't necessarily have the answers to any of this stuff. I'm just kind of thinking out loud. Justin says, isn't it most likely that Seth Rich never existed? Well, I mean, I don't know about that. We've seen video of him speaking at different events and photos of him and his family. I suppose all of that could be fake, but I don't think so. I think Seth Rich existed. I think maybe a better question is, you know, either we believe that the FBI has a witness protection program or we don't. Something weird has been going on where whenever I see a video on Twitter, on X, whatever video I watch, whether it's about Trump or AI or Charlie Kirk or anything, video games, whatever it is, the next video to come up is The Sopranos, like clips from old Sopranos. If you want to start a podcast, this guy's got you covered. Got clips from The Sopranos. And so I was thinking about the witness protection program, right? Either we agree that there is a witness protection program and that exists, or it doesn't. And I think it does. I mean, Henry Hill said he was in it. We've heard about it. I mean, there's documentation about it, laws about it. So, I mean, the idea is the FBI, the DOJ, the cops, whoever, can take a person, and if they are an important enough witness, they put them in the witness protection program, which basically entails changing their identity in terms of official documents, give you a new driver's license, a new passport. You know, all of that is essentially fake, but it's also real. I mean, they're officially issued documents that you can travel around the world and anywhere with, but they're fake in that if the guy was born Seth Rich and they put him into the witness protection program, he's got some driver's license and passport and essentially hairstyle and facial hair treatment or glasses or no glasses or lost weight or who knows what, that doesn't look like him anymore, and he's got a new identity. So I think something like that is more likely, that perhaps he's, you know, put into the witness protection program. I think Seth Rich was working for the FBI, and I think their goal was to get the Epstein evidence that Dugan had. Because obviously they've been covering up for Epstein, they're still doing that. So, I mean, again, people will say, oh, well, that's because Israel controls the US government. I don't think that's it. I think it's because it's all one and the same. It's a network of spy agencies that are protecting one another so that they can do whatever the hell they want and basically control money and power. And we're all just jackasses who sit here and pay taxes while they do that. Now, I'm coming this way because I wanted to go along this street, which on my way out to the park was a particularly bad mess in terms of e-bikes and garbage. It was 26th Street, so we'll go back that way. Remember Eric Adams spoke about the future of garbage? That's the type of thing the mayor should be doing. Not what Eric Adams did, but an actual solution, you know? Something that would reduce the city's garbage collection budget, more effectively utilize the people who work for the sanitation department, and remove more garbage. Like here we have 3 police officers. Look at this garbage. So, you know, these traffic cops doing nothing, it's not their fault. They're wasting time for other reasons, but look at this garbage. Wouldn't New York be a better city if there was some, so maybe it's not self-driving, but just, there's got to be some more efficient way to collect and remove garbage.
No business is going to be in the city in a couple of years, bro. Yeah, it'll be done. Yes, you're right. Right, yeah. I know.
Guy's a mess. So we're on this street instead of 26th.
Lights.
But that's what the mayor needs to do. Improve the quality of life in the city, not by giving out food, one supermarket per borough. That's going to do nothing. Totally ineffective. People are saying it's going to be used to show that socialism works. Even if that was 100% a success, it's going to do nothing. It's a drop of water in the ocean, a pebble in a pond, doing literally nothing. That guy's a mess for his own reasons. Well, anyway, it does seem, I hope, that we maintained 12 megabits on this walk. So the bonded array seems to be working well. I got to figure out what this fault is all about. Something's still not set up correctly.
Yeah, do it. Perfect. Thank you.
But so that's basically that. Seth Rich, I think he was real, but I think everything that we've been told about him is fake. That's my opinion.
But who can tell in what, 20 seconds?
Yes, I agree, Mark. Yeah, that guy's getting a parking ticket. I mean, but you had 4 traffic cops over there. The traffic enforcement is a huge waste of money. I mean, I would just look at how many traffic enforcement officers are there, how much does it cost to pay them, how much money does the city get from traffic tickets, and is it, start firing a lot of them. And that's what they need to do. There's so much inefficiency in government. It's ridiculous. Anyway, that's all for today, folks. I'm going to keep... Jeff has a 20-inch laptop with the 4K. That's impressive. Good on you, Jeff. But going to keep...